you know anything about me, you know that I love my brother more than anything in the world.
AJ Vaynerchuk. AJ, welcome.
My why has really changed. When I was in my early 20s, I just want to make all the fucking money. And then my health deteriorated. Everything looked great on the outside, but shit was bad. I went to the ER 4 times in 12 months. And now my why is I'm gonna have a hard time coming up with too many original thoughts because my brother brainwashed me. One thing I really like, and I talk a lot about with guys when they just think about business and opportunity, would you rather have 100% of something small or 10% of something massive?
What's a piece of advice you'd give some aspiring business person that just wants to make it?
I actually have a take that I think most people would be surprised at. I don't want to come off like an arrogant prick.
I'm Adam Breneman.
This is
Next up. Wild. Next up.
Said I appreciate you doing this, man. I feel like we've been trying to do it for a while. So it's funny. When I hit you up, I was like, "There's no way he's gonna have any time to do it."
It worked
Super
out,
Bowl
man.
week.
I kept, today I kept really open.
Yeah.
I cut everything I built was focused on tomorrow, so I kept today open, keeping Saturday open. Tomorrow's gonna be crazy.
What a crazy week out here right now.
It's
You know,
best.
literally everyone.
I was so mad because I forget when it was out here last, but I didn't even really know about the Waste Management Open like that. And then when I realized, I was like, God damn, when's it coming back? And then the second I knew it was coming back here, we got a suite for our staff and our clients, and we booked that shit 11 months ago.
Really?
Forever ago. We were
That could have been cheap.
Wasn't cheap, but a worthwhile investment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think a cool place to start would be give us a behind the scenes of an agent, big sports agency, what you do during Super Bowl week, because it's a big week for all the guys, even when they're not playing.
Yeah. So, it's a mix of things for, I think, a sports agency. So it's, first and foremost, our priority is a great opportunity to spend time with our clients.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I think we've got about 25 clients in town or so, about 20 or so football players and 5 or 6 baseball players. So just spend time with them. And then on the flip side, just networking, right? You have all these industries here. And before the sports agency, I was in the ad world dealing with the brands. So brands are here, athletes are here, and really we're at the intersection of those two things. So it's just about being out there, seeing people, spending quality time. Doesn't have to be, overly formal at an event like this. And so that's really what it is. It's just spend time. It's also with the team too, because we've got probably VaynerSports, I think about 45 employees. We probably got 15 to 20 of them here.
You got 45 employees now?
Yeah.
Wow. Mm-hmm. How fast have you grown? I mean, you was it a few years ago you had...
Nothing crazy. We started it, I guess, 6 years ago. It was football only. We're football, baseball, MMA, and gaming now.
Yeah. Because you have Sugar Sean too, right?
What's that?
You have Sean O'Malley, right?
We used to.
Oh, God.
We actually don't work with Sean now. Sean, as far as I understand, Sean doesn't have representation now.
Got it. He's doing that whole thing.
He's doing that whole thing, which happens. It happens in football. That happens. I don't think I've seen it too often in baseball, but football and MMA, a little bit of that. And so, I mean, I guess. Listen, I'm thrilled and I'm so excited about our future. I'm a little bit jaded because the first business that I started with my brother, the ad agency, we're 6 years in now. We have 45 employees. When we were 6 years in with the ad agency, we had 500 employees.
Yeah.
So I just have a twisted, distorted view of what's fast and two very different businesses and different situations.
Take me through, you were with your brother building VaynerMedia.
Yeah.
The transition to I want to be a sports agent. I want to start VaynerSports.
Yep.
How did that transition go down where you decided to leave VaynerMedia?
Yeah. So VaynerMedia, we started in 2009. I was straight out of school. And
you were 20.
I was 22.
Literally 22.
Literally 22. We started VaynerMedia 2 months before I graduated. I was literally studying for finals and doing client work because we kind of started selling VaynerMedia because we thought it would take a month or two. But my brother's a great salesman. We landed a client or two. So I was doing both. So we started VaynerMedia. I'm 22. And the other piece of not only were we running VaynerMedia, but VaynerMedia was really focused on early stage tech, social media platforms. So because of that, and because of our ties to Silicon Valley and just knowing some of those entrepreneurs, we also started investing in early stage tech. So for my 20s, I spent most of it working with brands, and investing in early stage tech companies. And those two things had me intersect with athletes a lot.
Got it.
And so, I grew up a diehard sports fan. I was always fascinated by the intersection of sports and business. I was the kid that when I played Madden, 95% of my playing was franchise mode, not the game, right?
The trades.
All the trades, the draft, and just playing that and beating that into the ground.
Yeah.
So I was always interested in that. And then with the VC stuff, just a lot of athletes were getting into early stage tech, and we were on the same cap tables. And my brother did a great job of building a brand and meeting these guys. So I got to meet these guys. And the reason why I left VaynerMedia was actually health related. So I suffer from something called Crohn's disease, which is a digestive disease, no cure. It's all about management. And one of the worst things for Crohn's is stress. And I was telling you before, we grew that thing fast.
Yeah.
And I was, when I was 24, we had 150 employees working for us. And it was mainly, for the most part, me handling those employees because Gary was traveling, Gary was speaking, writing books, getting business. He was growing the revenue. He was really bringing in the revenue, and I was maintaining it. I was hiring the people, I was managing the clients. So I just dealt with a lot of people. And 24, I'm the COO with 150 employees. 25, we've got like 250, 275 employees. And it got to a point where I was just a stress ball, and I wasn't loving the work. I was loving the team. The finance aspect was beneficial and lucrative. We were investing in early, and by the way, it wasn't just one job. We were also running a venture capital firm, when I was like 26. So, managing tens of millions of dollars as an investor, running this ad agency, not loving the work. And my stress, it was creating this cycle of, I would get stressed and I wouldn't feel well, and I would fall behind on work because of it. And then I would get more stressed because I was falling behind on work. I was just getting sicker and sicker. And I actually eventually had intestinal surgery, which put me on the shelf I was in the hospital for 2 weeks, a couple more weeks after that, recovering. I was just fucked up. Yeah. And so I told my brother, and he was super supportive. And I didn't like give my brother 2 weeks notice. I told him like, hey, I'll spend a year offboarding. We'll hire my replacements. I'll do everything. So we did that. And then my plan when I was leaving was not the sports agency. The only thing that I had planned is that I didn't want to plan. I was the type of kid that always knew what was next. I was always ready. Like, I went to Boston University. I got in early admission. So I knew where I was going to school like January my senior year. We started VaynerMedia 2 months before I graduated college. I was always on to the next thing before I was done with the first thing. And when I was leaving Vayner, I had a lot of people in our network that was like, hey, come run this business. I was getting job offer, co-founder offers, and I just said no to everything. No disrespect to them. Yeah. I just wanted to in the first time, I didn't have kids yet. Now I've got 3. And I was just like, you know what? I don't want a plan. My plan, my non-plan was to take a sabbatical. Originally, I was going to take a year off. I was like, I'm going to take a year. I got to get my health right. I got to eat right. I got to get like my mind right. And I don't want to rush into the next thing. And the first month was awesome. Walked my dog every day. Like my dog was in shape. I was in shape. I was cooking my own meals. I strategically started my sabbatical in May of that year. So it was like nice weather was coming up in the Northeast. I'm going to golf. I'm going to cook healthy. And the first month was awesome. But then I was like, man, like I'm like 29. I'm not 50. Like I got more to do, and I got a little bored. And so thankfully I had, just from doing personal investments in our VC fund, I had a bunch of companies that we had invested in, and I would just check in with them. It was perfect. I was just an investor. If they had some shit, not my, it's like being an uncle, right? Like,
you're there for the good stuff.
Yeah, you're there for the good stuff. You play with the little kid. Oh, they shit their pants. Like, hey, mom, diaper. Like, you know what I mean? That's what being an investor, and we were never a lead investor. So it was perfect. There was no stress, no responsibility, just adding value and just keeping my mind stimulated. And one of our investments, not from the fund, but just personal, is we just being sports nuts. Gary and I invested in a small sports agency. Our current business partner, Brian McLaughlin, had about a handful of NFL guys, and it was just fun. We wrote a small check into his business. It helped him, get on more planes, try to get more players. And I was checking it on his business because I fucking love sports and the intersection of it. And I remember maybe like 2 months into my sabbatical, I got off the phone and my wife, Allie, was like, oh, who was that? And I saw that was Brian. She's like, I feel like you talk to Brian every day. Do you talk to any of your other investments every day? I'm like, no. She's like, doesn't that tell you something? And it just like, she helped me see what I should have saw. And I ended up cutting my sabbatical short. I ended up doing 4 months. I kept the summer. I was like ready to be done. Like July 4th weekend, I knew what I wanted to do. I'm like, I'm gonna at least get to Labor Day. I mean, like we had like friends come in and like we rented a house in Martha's Vineyard. It was dope. Best time of my life. But I was ready to get back into it. And so Gary and I ended up buying a majority interest in Brian's company, kept him on as a partner, equity partner, and just started building from there. And that was probably like 6 years ago or so.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
I never heard that full story explained. That's sweet. You said you were running a venture capital firm too and then you were doing personal investments at that.
So the personal investments were few and far between. They were only when it made absolutely no sense for the fund. And the fund was focused on early stage tech. So investing in a sports agency was completely outside of what made sense.
Yeah, those were all like smaller check sizes.
Yeah. Much smaller checks. And we started with smaller checks and then had success, being early investors in things like Uber, Venmo, and a few other things that then allowed us to get some institutional capital we got an LP and we were writing bigger checks.
Got it. So then when you decide I'm going to start a sports agency, like that's a big undertaking. Like what's the first step? Like, I mean, you got to recruit clients.
Yeah. So I'll be candid. First and foremost, I was way too cocky. Yeah. I was delusional. I was like, man,
we'll get everybody.
I was delusional. And, I'm not, I understand why I was delusional, right? My only context was I was 22 years old and my older brother and I, with 0 days of advertising experience, went in and built the largest independent ad agency in the world. Yeah. So that was my only business experience. So I was really feeling myself. I was like, like, I know what athletes want. I get it. Like, we got this and the venture capital stuff and the marketing. But it was much harder than I realized because the biggest reason why is I felt as if, as I reflect back now, it's very much track record business, right? Think about it in your shoes. Yeah. You have an agent walk in and I think 99% of kids, one of the first things they're thinking is like, all right, well, what other tight ends have you had?
Yeah, exactly.
None.
Yeah.
That's bad.
Yeah.
Right? Well, what other guys at Penn State have you had? Or UMass? Like, none.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
So
no doubt.
we didn't have this thriving foundation of clients to work off of as case studies and proof. What first round picks have you had? None. Right? So we just started from scratch in that regard. Now, Brian, I don't want to discredit Brian. He had a few draft picks, a few good players, but like his guy, like Matt Paradis was one of our clients that Brian, and still a client, seeing him tomorrow. He was Boise State, and then another guy, Walter Powell, was Murray State. And so it was, smaller schools, tough to get to, and they were late round picks. And Matt went on to have a great career, Super Bowl champ, got a really nice second contract. So, and that helped. So I was definitely delusional about what we were missing. Yeah. And so it just took some time and took some guys to believe in us. And, we got it going. But once we started getting some guys and we were able to start doing some work for them and the success that we were having, a lot of it off the field, just given the ad agency and our background in that, it's a rich get richer business. Yeah. And so, we were making progress with football, hired some key agents, like one of our COO of the football division, Brandon Parker. When he came and joined us, he brought over Allen Robinson and Leonard Williams and a few other guys. And so we were just starting to add guys. And then we ended up merging with my business partner, Greg Genske, and his baseball agency. So now we're football and baseball. And he brought over guys like Justin Turner and a few others. And so it's a rich get richer business. And we needed to add some pieces and get some guys to build off of.
Is there one player that signed with you that you feel like turned the point?
No, there really wasn't. Yeah. It was one of those things where it was like just a series of events. We we just kept adding guys and we kept making good moves. And I think the thing that I'm most proud of is we've really made it clear the type of client we want to work with. I'm very proud of not just the athlete all our clients are, but the human that they are. We really do have a high quality of athlete. And so I think just it was one of those, it wasn't one key. I wish it was because it's a better story. Yeah. There wasn't one specific key signing that really launched us. It was just a series of events.
Take us through the recruiting process as an agent.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with it
of
because
course.
I went through it a little bit, but I think it's something that fans don't always realize that really players get recruited again when they're coming out of school, and it starts way before they graduate.
Oh yeah,
agents are recruiting.
And it's getting earlier now with NIL and everything.
Yeah. So what's that process like when you identify? Because you also have an evaluation process. Yeah. So take us through that.
it's really not one size fits all.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. And I always like to reflect on like our draft classes and the guys that we sign as veterans. And it's always unique and different. I'll talk about myself personally, because even within our agency, other agents have different ideas of what works for them. And for me, I'm a big fan of starting early. I like the idea of building a long-standing relationship over a long period of time, because I think it gives me more of an opportunity to show the kid and the family who I am as a man and what I'm capable of. So this is a long, call it quote unquote payoff. And I got a little bit lucky that NIL came to be, but I'll give you 2 examples of 2 clients that I've recruited and led on that aren't even in the NFL yet, but I've been rocking with them for years. DJ Uyunglele, the Oregon State quarterback, who started at Clemson, and then Kyle McCord, who is, in my opinion, next in line at Ohio State at quarterback. So 2 quarterbacks. I met both those kids when they were juniors in high school.
Wow.
So DJ is going into his 4th year of college. So I've known DJ for 6 years. He's not even in the NFL yet. And then Kyle, Kyle worked out a little bit easier because he's a Jersey kid. He was in my backyard, maybe an hour and a half away from me. But I went to my first, I ended up having lunch with Kyle and his father, going into his junior year, summer between his sophomore and junior year. And then I actually went to a high school football game at Rutgers between his school, St. Joe's, and then I can't remember a team from Maryland. But I'm at a Rutgers stadium on a Friday night watching a high school junior quarterback. Now he's slinging it. And he's throwing to Marvin Harrison Jr. Him and Marvin played together, so like got to see Marvin Jr. play. But like, so for me, I'm a big fan of starting early. And what's great is like when I was doing that, it made even less sense than it does now, because now with NIL, the things that we get to do for these guys is even at a greater stage. But, to talk more broadly, one of the more common ways, and it's a great way, is, you represent a player that maybe was in the draft. So I'll give you an example. Business partners Mike McCartney and Jamie Moten, they joined us last April, so less than a year ago. And when they joined us, they brought over Aiden Hutchinson. And so Aiden, stud, at the time of us recording this, should find out in the next few hours if he wins the AP Defensive Rookie of the Year or not. And so he's a stud. And in our current draft class now for this upcoming draft in April, we also represent a guy named Mike Morris, who played on the defensive line with Aiden, right? So just a very common and very logical way is, hey, you rep a player, they go out and have success through the draft process, through their rookie year, they enjoy that process, they enjoy the relationship with their agency. Getting a teammate of theirs is a great way, right, to get them. So I think that's a big piece of it. I think that you meet people just through other aspects of the business, right, through trainers, through financial advisors, through managers. So, warm leads are always best. We get guys cold, but warm leads are always best. And then another one that's pretty unique for us that, is definitely an advantage is that because my brother does have this massive social media presence, I would say 50 to 75% of, guys that we would want to try to go get have at least some familiarity, if not an affinity for my brother's stuff. So that helps too.
Yeah. How much do you use him in the recruiting process? Is it kind of,
So it's interesting. We used to be really hamstrung. We couldn't rely on him very much because he's not a certified NFLPA agent.
Got it.
And so, before NIL, we could only, the rule, I believe, I'm confident this is true, I should know this, they could meet my brother at our offices in New York, and that was the only way. And they have to pay their way to do, that's like when they're in school. And they have to, so we would get some meetings that way. That's tough. Come to New York. Most kids don't want to go to New York. You would think New York, but like most kids don't want to go. So that was really tough. But then when NIL came to be, that helped
Changes
a
the game.
ton because we're going after these kids in college, not for the NFL, but to represent them from a marketing perspective, which is fair game. And so my brother is a lot more useful, I guess is the word, in that regard. And then, it's no secret, these kids can't commit to you for the NFL, but the hope that you have is that if we do great work for them and we show our professionalism, we build a relationship through the marketing side of their college experience, we hope that they feel good enough about our NFL capabilities and we've built a good enough relationship that we make it an easy decision when they go pro.
I feel like a lot of kids would sign with you guys for that marketing NIL side of it. I also know that a lot of college guys are a little bit delusional about what their NIL market value is. And they think they should be making $300,000 in NIL, and they're not.
1,000% right.
How do you balance that? Like,
just transparency. You're 100% right. We walked away from plenty of kids because I have a hard rule. If you asked any of my partners on the agent side, like, what does AJ care about when it comes to signing a kid for NIL? It's number 1, 2, and 3 is expectations. Because if there's a kid from a small school that doesn't play what I call a fantasy football position, right? Fantasy football position, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, pass catching, tight end, those are marketable players. And then if they're at a big school, that also, right? So like a tight end at Penn State is a lot more marketable than a left guard at Tulane. Just straight up, right? And so expectations are everything. And I need to know what the kid expects before I agree to put my energy and my network behind them. Because if their expectations are out of whack, I'd rather not work with them. I'd rather not sign a kid than get fired. And so that's the big piece. And we've walked away from plenty of kids that, whether their expectations were right or wrong, I just didn't feel comfortable that we could deliver. I don't like doing something if I can't deliver. My mind, when we talk about the agency, just goes to the business side of it. And I'm curious to talk about this quickly. Sharing what you're willing, the business model of a sports agency. A lot of times, from what I know, it's a long game. You got to invest money in training and paying for guys to live before the draft, and then unless they're a first round pick, I don't know how all the numbers work out, but you're not making a huge return until a second contract, right? So that's exactly right.
Talk us through that a little bit.
So first and foremost, speaking candidly, it's a terrible business. It just is. Like,
that's what I was thinking as I was.
It just is. Like, I'm doing this out of pure passion. Like,
a lot easier ways to make money.
Way easier ways. But at the same token, like, I'm going to be at the Waste Management tomorrow, hanging with 20 of our guys. And like, that's me working. Like, that's the trade-off. So it's a bad business in that regard. The other thing, too, is that I would say it's one of those things that has a really high barrier to entry. And then, like I said before, it's a rich get richer business. So when you start getting guys that get to second contracts and have success, it gets easier to sign the next guy, right? And so to your point, I do think that within the first few years of what we were up to, a lot of guys were attracted to the brand marketing, business acumen that comes with the Vaynerchuk name. But I think if you also look, if you look at our contract work, like our guy Mike McCartney, he's Kirk Cousins' agent. I think Kirk's contract work is the best in the business over the last decade, right? So there's that. You look at contracts like Leonard Williams, Allen Robinson, Foye Lukun, DJ Reed, like we crushed the contract side. So I think we're at a place now where it's like you can't just say, and again, that used to be what it was, and I think that was valid. Now it's like we've got it all, in my opinion.
Yeah, makes sense. Who's the athlete that you've signed that gave you the toughest battle in the recruiting process?
That's a great question. Oh, that's such a good question. I want to answer it well. Who made me sweat? Who made me recruit? Who do we got? For me personally, I'm in the middle of one right now. If I get the player, that'll be the answer. But I don't have them yet. I want to answer it really well. Who made me sweat? Who was hard? I'm trying to think of guys that I'm the lead on too. Oh man, I'll give you a separate. It's a cousin of your question. We signed Evan Engram this past offseason.
Oh, cool.
Shortly, great dude. So Evan, he did his 1-year deal in Jacksonville with his prior agency. Was unhappy with how that process went and switched to us in like May or June. So this isn't the perfect answer, but it's a good one in the sense that, we met with Evan, me, Mike, and Jamie, and went through the process with him, multiple calls, this and the art thing. And he texts us like, hey, I'm gonna give you all a call later. And we were expecting a decision at that point. We knew we were talking to other agencies, and he calls us and he's just like, listen, fellas, man, I really appreciate you guys. Like, I think you guys are good dudes. A lot of what you had to say made a lot of sense to me. Talked it over with my family, and ultimately, I decided to go with y'all. And it was like everything he said until he said he was going with us, and we were like, bro. He was he set us up. He wanted to make us sweat.
That's great.
But it wasn't like he was really. Listen, he's a really bright dude. He didn't drag out the process. He was very transparent what he was looking for. So it's not the perfect answer to your question.
hopefully we can sit down again, and the guy that I'm referring to will be the answer to that. The guy I'm referring to is a multi-year process, so we'll see.
Yeah.
But that one stuck out to me just because of how Evan played us. He tricked us.
That's a big sign. I didn't know you guys had Evan. That's sweet.
Yeah, he switched to us. Yep. He's free agent now too because he did a 1 year. So we'll see what happens this offseason.
That's awesome. Let's transition a little bit to some of the current wave of like athlete investing, athlete entrepreneurs, and specifically like how athletes manage money.
Sure.
How involved are you guys in the process of making sure your athletes don't go broke? And why do you think it's been such a long-told theme of athletes being bad at managing money?
Yeah. So first off, our involvement is what I would call like surface level. We don't provide financial services at Vayner. Most agencies don't. I believe it should be church and state. And so for the most part, we don't have any partnerships with financial advisors or anything like that. So for the most part, when it comes to like the black and white of creating a budget and things like that, we're not involved. But what I will say, and you kind of alluded to it before, I think a lot of folks, when they decide to come with us, look at my brother and I and what we've accomplished in business. And I think it's a bit of a self-selecting process in the sense that the type of guys that go with us are the type of guys that are going to do well without us, right? And they gravitate towards like the more interesting side of business and entrepreneurship rather than some of the stuff that gets kids in trouble financially or personally. And so, we have to be really careful because I'm not a registered financial advisor. And I have a lot of my guys ask me about like venture capital stuff. And I always have to tell them like, listen, first and foremost, if you're on a rookie deal and you weren't like a top 10 pick, like you shouldn't even be thinking about venture capital. It's stupid risky. And you just don't have enough money as a second, third, fourth round pick to be kind of spending that kind of like, we'll revisit your second contract type thing. So yeah. And then I guess to go to your question about why guys go broke, it's systemic. I think I think for a lot of guys that make it, they don't have, like, I'm very, very, very lucky, right? Like I have parents that did well. My brother did well. I had these examples for so many guys. The second they sign their rookie contract, they're by far the biggest breadwinner in their family tree, right? And so they don't have an older brother that's been there and done that in most instances, right? And I find that when guys do have an older brother that played or a father that played or an uncle that played, they are more prepared, right? And so I think a lot of it just comes down to the guys that end up making it. A lot of times don't have the example at home. They don't have the resources. Let's call a spade a spade. It's fucking exciting when you make that kind of money and you're 21. And they should spend some money and have fun and enjoy their life. But, sometimes they go overboard. Another thing is I think athletes are targets, as are musicians and actors, right? Yeah. So if you got, every year we're adding, call it 100 to 150 millionaires in the NFL draft, right? And everybody in the country knows how much they make, what they look like, what they're about, where they live, where they're from, what team, you know what I mean? Yeah, whereas their peers that make the same amount of money working in finance or law, nobody gives a shit about a lawyer walking down the street. They're not approaching that lawyer for a business deal in the sense. So I just think it's a tough situation. And then there's like the keeping up with the Joneses aspect. And there's a lot of factors that go into it.
Yeah. When it comes to athlete-driven media, and kind of the big trend right now is athletes hosting their own podcasts and athletes creating content and trying to build their brand while they're playing. Yeah. What's kind of your take on that? I'm assuming you guys are kind of super involved in that, but it's really a trend that I
actually have a take that I think most people would be surprised of. Like if you know who my brother is and what we're about, you'll be surprised by this take. We don't force it down our guys' throats. Like I have no interest in working with a guy that doesn't want to create a ton of content, doesn't want to be doing that. I'm not going to force them. I'm not going to bother them. I don't want them to feel like it's homework. So a lot of our guys aren't active, even though they're at VaynerSports, and you would think. And we have all the resources. Yeah. On the flip side, we've got guys like Isaac Rochelle with his wife, Allie, and Juwan Johnson and his wife, Janin, that clients of ours, and we helped introduce them to TikTok and kind of inspired them to go. And to their credit, we got to take very little credit in the grand scheme for what they've built outside of introducing them to the concept and giving them some resources. They took, we helped them a tiny, tiny bit. They took it away. But those two, Juwan and Isaac, crushing. on the content side of stuff. And so we do have the resources. We're early on this stuff. And so it just depends on the kid. It depends on the client.
With Juwan and Isaac too, they hit the jackpot with their wives. Are really the superstars, right?
For sure. But I'm pretty confident, and Shannon and Allie, don't kill me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure that both of them were introduced to TikTok, which is their main platform of where they're winning, via their husbands, via us.
Really?
Yeah. So it wasn't like, Shannon was crushing TikTok and then Juwan got to tag along. Like Juwan, and by the way, Juwan and Shannon in particular, like I remember when Juwan was at Oregon, like he was doing a YouTube series with Shannon and like, so they're creators and Isaac and Allie too. But I just think we were able to kind of show them TikTok at the right time early and they ran with it.
Yeah. Juwan was at Penn State when I was there.
Yeah.
So, I remember
Juwan was always a creative dude.
Yeah.
He was creating video, and I think I think for Juwan, our media content, my brother's stuff was a huge reason he decided to go with us out of school.
Yeah. And I feel like even maybe for you guys, like early on, that was probably a lot of guys were making that choice because of that.
That's what we needed to do, right? Because we didn't have the track record of like, we rep your teammate or you know what I mean? So we need to rely on the media, the marketing, and the ads.
Do you like creating content yourself?
I don't.
Yeah.
I'm not.
I was just thinking, you don't do it. I mean, you
very
post
rarely,
these, but you're more Twitter guy, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and like compared to my brother, like much less.
Does your brother ever give you shit? He's like,
all the time,
start posting
but from
more?
a loving place, all the time from a loving place, because he's like, you're good at it, you should do it, it's important, it'll help you. It just doesn't come naturally to me. I tell myself all the time, like, you got to do more, you got to do better, and then I don't. So it doesn't come naturally to me. It's not a strength of mine. I kind of like it though, because it also helps illustrate. Because I'm telling you, a lot of our guys are like, "Hey man, like I'm not Gary." I'm like, I'm not asking you to be Gary. I'm not Gary, right? And like, look at my brother's Instagram. Like my brother's posted more on Instagram in the last week than I have probably in the last 6 months, right? And so that's okay.
Yeah.
As long as you understand by not doing more of it, you're leaving money on the table from a brand, because a lot of these brands care about what your distribution is, what your reach is, and so your production on the field doesn't always matter.
Yeah. What's the best piece of advice you've learned from Gary, from your older brother?
I've had that question asked before, and I'm pretty sure I've answered it this way before, but it's the truth. It's all about perspective.
Yeah.
I think that's something that he taught me that was really important, and then that kind of just naturally fit my way of being, is like, I don't get too high or too low.
Yeah.
I don't let a client firing us or this, that, or the other thing get me off the path. Like, I read and react and adjust, and it's all about perspective. And if a bad day at the like, I have a bad. One thing is like, I refuse to do is bring a bad day at the office at home, right? Like, let's say I have a bad day and I come home and it's like 5:30, 6 o'clock, and I get to see my kids. My daughter's 5.5, my son's 3.5, my other daughter's 2. Chaos. and like, and they hang with mommy all day. And when daddy got it easy. Daddy's gone working all day, and he comes home and he's the superstar because he's been gone all day. Second the garage door opens, the 3 kids, it's the best feeling in the world. They explode. They're so pumped. And like, I refuse to bring a bad day at the office to that energy, right? They're like, let's play, let's do this, da-da-da. And if I'm just moping around or being an asshole, like that's not what my kids deserve, right? So I think I'm really good at being able to compartmentalize. I have perspective, right? Like, bad day at the office, client fires us, or brand headache, or this, like, my kids are healthy, my family's healthy, business is still growing. Like, yeah, we lost 1 client, but we signed 3 last week. Don't forget. So it's just about perspective. It makes life a lot better when you have it.
You mentioned getting fired by an athlete, which happens every agent.
No doubt.
Do you guys ever fire athletes? Like do you ever realize you work with one and it's a bad fit and you got to move on?
I don't think I've ever explicitly fired a client, but I've definitely have done things in terms of like spoken to a client and addressed an issue directly without concern if they would fire me for it or not, right? So like, if a client is problematic, which is very, very rare for us. Again, I talked about it before, like it's self-selecting. Like a problematic client probably doesn't hire us in the first place kind of thing. But I'm willing to address it. I'm not scared to get fired by any client. So I'm willing to address it straight on. And sometimes guys don't react well to that, and that's fine. That's rare.
Yeah. What's the advice you give? We talked about the financial advice a little bit. The advice you give athletes as far as when it comes to the brand deals, the marketing deals, on taking large sums of cash versus taking the equity in deals?
Depends on where you are in your career.
Yeah.
We have a guy, he's now retired, Derek Morgan. Had a great career, former first-round pick, career as a tight end edge rusher. And I remember there was an opportunity with a company, and it was not quite a startup, called a far along startup.
Yeah.
And they offered some cash. And I was like, D, you've banked like tens of millions of dollars. And it was a small deal. It was like 10 grand. I was like, hey man, like instead of taking the 10 G's, like let's think about equity, right? And to his credit, that made sense to him. And that made sense for him. Whereas like a kid that's maybe like a 5th round pick and, it's either cash or equity, maybe the cash makes more sense because they don't have pure stability and this and the other thing. So I think it depends on where you are in your career. I'm never gonna be the one to make that choice because again, I'm not a registered financial advisor. I like to get the financial advisor involved.
But everyone wants your opinion on it, right?
They want my opinion on it. I just gotta be careful. I don't need a lawsuit. I don't need the PA.
It's a lawsuit waiting to happen.
I don't need the PA kicking me out. So I gotta be really careful. I feel bad. I'm like, I get guys that text me like, hey, like, check out this brand. Like, do you think I should invest in it? And like, I'm like, hey man, you know what I'm about to say? Like, I'm not a registered financial advisor. What I'm about to say is not financial advice.
Disclaimers.
I have the disclaimer because if I get fucking whacked, I got screenshots, I got receipts, I need them. So it really just depends on where you are in your career and it depends on how much of an appetite they have for risk. I did it very irresponsibly. When I wrote a check into Uber, thank God, when I wrote that check into Uber, I wrote a small $10,000 check into Uber, and that was like 40% of my net worth. Like it was very irresponsible. I probably had like 25 in the bank and I put 10 into Uber.
Was that?
This was 2010.
Wow.
Yeah.
We did some research on the valuation of Uber in 2010 and
it was their Series B. It worked out. I'm glad I did it, but it was irresponsible.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I want to ask you a little bit about NFTs and Web3 and where that world's going. We've seen the bull market and then the crash, and now everyone runs away from the word NFTs and brands don't want to associate with it anymore.
Yeah.
And where do you think that the industry goes? How does it get adopted by the mainstreams? You're very involved with the VaynerSports Pass.
Yeah. Where I'm super deep. My brother started VeeFriends, one of the biggest projects in the space. I led the charge on VaynerSports Pass, which was a complimentary NFT project to the sports agency. Gary and I spun up another fund and invested in Web3. So I'm very invested, and you have to take this with a grain of salt because I have a financial interest in its success, but I'm a believer. And I actually think, listen, do I wish the bull market ended? No. Money was flying around. It was good. But I also think that the bear market we're in now has been healthy. It's been a healthy reset. Like some of the stuff that was happening at the very tail end was so unsustainable, was so irresponsible that I think this has been a good cleansing of some bad actors and some bad decision-making from greedy people. And so I'm a big believer in the blockchain as a fundamental technology that's going to be important. I'm excited to see the blockchain's application in more like boring industries. Like I think there's a politician in the New York area, Santos, who allegedly is like everything about him is not true.
Yeah, George
like,
Santos.
Yeah, George Santos. Thing, right? Like
I
haven't checked everything. I don't know, but like
it's
from
true.
what I've heard,
You lie about everything.
Yeah, from what I heard, like I don't think George Santos is even his name. I'm not even kidding. Like everything's not true. The school that he went to, his career, everything's wrong.
Yeah.
And like one of the things was he said he went to, I forget what school he said he went to, but like I'm a believer that, and you hear about people lying on their resume. I think every diploma should be on the blockchain. I went to Boston University. And I think it should be on a public ledger. And if you want to know where AJ Vaynerchuk went to college, it's right there for you, and it's immutable, and it's clear, right? There's no fudging that. Because when somebody sends in a resume via Word doc, they just say they went to Dartmouth with a 3.4.
No one really checks it either.
And honestly, I don't think I've ever double checked anybody ever, right? But if it was just a link to the blockchain, I can go on Etherscan or if it was on Ethereum, like I think that's a real application that matters. I'm a big fan. And I believe that most sporting events, I wish sporting events. Now, part of this is selfish because I'm like the type of dude that isn't very good about like keeping stuff. And like, I'm the type of dude to lose something important or a memento. But like, I grew up a diehard Jet fan, like diehard. And I think it would be dope to have on the blockchain every single game that I attended, as a Jet fan, whether home or away. And then on top of that, it'd be cool if it could be like a dynamic piece of content associated with maybe a highlight from that game, right? Like I went to one of my favorite Jet games growing up. Like I went to Foxborough that year that the Patriots should have absolutely won the Super Bowl. The Bart Scott can't wait post-game conference, right?
Yeah.
Like I went to that game and I don't know where the ticket stub is. I lost.
You have nothing to prove you were there.
No, I have nothing to prove that I was there. Even better, my brother and I went to the Monday Night Miracle in 2000. Jets Dolphins. Jets are down 30-7, win that game in overtime. Down 30-7 late third quarter, one of the biggest comebacks in NFL history. It's called the Monday Night Miracle. We stayed for the entire game. And there was probably less than 5,000 people that were there the whole time. But I bet if there's 50,000 Jet fans that say they were at that game, and there's nothing to prove them wrong or not, right? So I think the blockchain, housing deeds, more boring stuff, events going, all
transactions,
all that stuff.
Which blockchain comes out on top?
I don't know the answer to that. Right now, it's Ethereum, in my opinion, but things can change. I'm not passionate or married to any particular blockchain. I'm just a believer in the blockchain.
Yeah. Let's talk NIL.
Okay.
And how you rep guys in NIL.
Yep.
And so much talk about it. Space I'm super involved in, and so much good that comes from it.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's the bad, the
For
articles
sure.
you read. What's the future of NIL? How does the playing field get evened out a little bit? Where do you kind of see the whole industry going?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I'm such a big believer that, and yes, there's pros and cons to everything, but I think the pros for NIL so far outweigh the cons. People are talking about like, oh man, like what are these 18 or 19-year-olds going to do with all this money? They're going to fuck it up at 22. They might as well fuck it up at 18. Frankly, they might be. I actually think it's fantastic, right? You got a guy that's a projected first-round pick that's made a lot of money in college. They got to make some mistakes with the number one pick in the draft is going to make like $35 to $40 million guaranteed, right? I'd rather them fuck up $1 million or $2 million before they get 35 rather than fuck up all 35 the second they get it. You know what I mean? So I think it's actually great that way. So many kids had nothing without being able to make some extra. And like, yes, I know they get a free degree and they get a stipend and all that, but it's still relative to the value that they bring, it's nothing.
Yeah.
And I know of guys that used to sleep at the facility so that their mom could sleep at their apartment that they're able to afford with their stipend. Like, it's so much better in that regard. I also think it's good for the quality of play. I saw the stat today. I want to say there was 84.
NFL,
was it 84?
Early,
that went early.
Yeah.
Last year was 100. The year before that, I think, was 121. We had a guy, Sam Hartman, that we rep for NIL that was at Wake Forest that I think without NIL goes pro, but instead decided to go to Notre Dame. Yeah. Gives him an opportunity to play in a more pro style, because the slow mesh at Wake Forest, I think, had some scouts confused as to what to think of Sam. But now he gets to Notre Dame, gets a little bit more of a pro style offense, and I think he'll make money at. Let me phrase. I know he's going to make money at Notre Dame. He's the face of Notre Dame football, ACC all-time passing touchdown leader, and then he just can go to the NFL next year. He'll be more seasoned, more ready. Yeah. Look at Brock Purdy this year. I think a lot of people talk about all the games that he got to play. Do you know how many quarterbacks stayed this year that would have went in other years? Like Bo Nix stayed, and I don't, but a lot of guys stayed, and the data's showing it. So I think, NIL has been a great thing. There's some headaches that have come along with it. There's the kid that had his deal with one school explode, and he had to get released, Rashada. And so there's some bad stuff, but I think the net's good. I think, this first year and a half has been the Wild Wild West. I think more and more precedent is getting established, and it's going to normalize a bit more. And I've been impressed by the universities hiring directors of NIL, and the collectives are getting stronger and smarter. And I'm just very bullish on what it means for what the kids are going to be able to get what they deserve for the value they bring to these schools. I always point to my NIL. If I meet somebody that's like, NIL is ruining college football and it's bad, look at Dunk City, the Florida Gulf Coast basketball team that made that Cinderella run in the tournament like 6 or 7, 8 years ago. If you look at Dunk City, Florida Gulf Coast, here's who benefited from the kids' magical run. The head coach got a huge deal to go be the head coach at USC. Yeah. The university's enrollment exploded because they just kept showing beaches and campus when they were making their run.
The school's name forever until that.
That school didn't exist in my mind before they started dunking on everybody, right? Yeah. So university explodes. The coach gets a ton of money. Yeah. Look at the kids that played. Not one of them played an NBA minute. Yeah. Not one. And that's in my opinion. They made that school a lot of money. They made that coach a lot of money. Now the coach helped them, and I get it. And those kids played in Europe and all that. But disproportionate for what they did versus what they got back financially.
Yeah, no doubt. If it's a business for everyone involved,
except the kids, it's bull.
Yeah.
So now it's going in a much better place. I'm enjoying it.
Have you seen? You mentioned some of the negative talk around NIL comes from young guys making money.
Yeah.
Which is one side of it. The other side is it being used in recruiting.
Yeah.
And the pay for play and things like that. Have you seen any of that? Have you
it exists.
had experiences with
it
players
exists,
dealing with that?
but why is it wrong?
Yeah.
That's my perspective.
It's the market. Yeah.
The market says that this 5-star deserves X, Y, and Z, and there's a university that's willing to, have or not the university, they're not paying, but the collective.
Donors, yeah.
Yeah, the donors think that the kid's worth it. And also, let's not be naive. This shit was happening.
Yeah.
It was just under the table. Like, it was just a bag of money instead of a contract. It's better, it's cleaner, it's more of a marketplace. This shit's been around forever.
Yeah.
Kids are getting please.
It's the reason the SEC is so good at NIL. They've been doing NIL for 50
they got the
years.
experience.
Yeah, they know how to do it. They know how to do it.
Exactly.
Where do you want VaynerSports to be in 10 years?
Same place we're in now, representing great people. I want us to be more profitable. I want our players to be enjoying more great long careers. I want to be in more sports. We're in 4 for now. We'll probably jump into a 5th sport in the next year or 2. So I want to do what we've done across, these 4 sports that we're in now and just scale it. I want to be in every sport.
Yeah.
I'm a passionate golfer. I can't wait to be in golf. I love basketball. Can't wait to be in basketball. I want to be in hockey, soccer. I want to be in all the sports, and I want to be doing it the way we've been doing it.
Do you have goals to grow? I mean, we talked about the growth of VaynerMedia. Do you have goals to grow as big as CAA and some of the
yeah,
big dogs?
I'm not measuring success based on head count or client size. I don't have those tangible goals. Like I said, I honestly want to do what we're doing right now and just continue to scale it. I really we're not signing thousands of players. Like, we have 6 guys ready for this NFL draft. We got 3 unbelievable and more guys in college baseball, but we got a bunch of the we're signing a reasonable amount of clients at a reasonable pace that are high character, high in talent, and I just really like the trend that we're on.
Yeah. Would you be the GM if you bought the job?
Probably. Yeah, probably.
That's
a ways away. Yeah. I think, truth be told, call it 20 years from now, he goes out and buys it, and I can help him. Because the cool thing is, I think he'd be the first ever NFL owner. And Gary, by the way, Gary knows coaches. Gary goes, people don't know this. Gary goes to the Senior Bowl. Gary goes to the Combine. Gary loves this. This is a passion for him. And so what's really dope is, I think, honestly, he'd be the first owner that really knows a ton of scouts and really knows a ton of coaches. And me and our team, we would really know. And the ability to go build a front office and a coaching staff based on decades of context and relationships, as opposed to just coming in ice cold as a rich person and acquiring a team.
Doing it for fun.
and just relying on 1 or 2 people to build everything without your context. So, I think we'd build the best front office and coaching staff ever at that point.
Give me your strategy if you're a GM. What's your roster building strategy?
One, I don't know if I want to reveal my secrets.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's a competitive. I have real thoughts on this topic.
This will come up in 20 years.
Yeah, I have real thoughts on the topic. I'll leave it at this. I think that our investment and the construction of our business, of how we fund and operate a front office and a coaching staff, would look very different. I'll say this, and I'll leave it very broad. I think most owners underinvest on management and overinvest on players. The amount of money you pay the number 1 pick in the draft that may or may not work out versus what you pay your entire front office, all of your scouts, all of your coaches, your physical therapists. I think it's a dramatic under.
Yeah.
I would rather trade my number 1 overall pick and the $40 million I was going to give guaranteed to that player, unless I need a quarterback, because quarterback runs the show. But let's say this year, who has the number 1 pick? The Bears? Right? And they got Fields. Assume they love Fields. I don't know. Assume they love Fields. You have the number 1 pick in the draft, and you could take, there's the Carter kid out of Georgia, Will Anderson. You can give that kid $40 million guaranteed. And by the way, I don't know. Those kids could be Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
If I owned a team in that situation, would rather trade that pick for future picks.
Yeah.
And maybe a second or third. You get a haul.
Yeah.
2 future ones, a 2, whatever. And then you just didn't spend the $40 million guaranteed. And I would invest all that to doctors, physicians, additional scouts, coaches. Like, I just think there's a disproportionate investment on the thing that makes the players go.
Yeah, it's a great point. I never thought of that. It is a crazy disproportion. You know, it's not even close.
I don't think there's a single NFL team that spends that type of money on their GM, front office, coaching staff, physical therapists, research science, doctors, and that's one player.
Yeah. What's going on with the Jets? Like, why are they so bad right now?
They're not bad. And listen, I know I grew up a Jet fan, but I have to be mindful of the fact that I'm now an agent. I rep a guy we rep DJ Reed. Yeah. We rep Zonovan Knight. So I'm not going to comment on the Jets, but I've gotten to know Coach Sala. I've gotten to know Joe and a few, Rex, Greg, a few other guys. I think they got the right people in place. Yeah. I think they just need to make a few good decisions this offseason, and they've got a good team. Yeah. They obviously had a disappointing, end of the year, but a lot of it was injury. By the way, and people don't talk enough about the injuries that team faced. Yeah. They lost their best offensive lineman. They lost Breece Hall, who was going crazy at the time. Like, they lost some big pieces too.
Do you go to a lot of games still?
Yeah, here and there. Honestly, I'm not one of those agents that's at every game and this and the other thing. I'm fortunate that I think all my clients understand that I've got 3 little kids. I'm trying to be a dad. I'm trying to be a good husband. If it's super important, I'm there. I'm always there for my guys. And plus, games, I'd rather go see a client on a Tuesday during their off day and chill and really talk rather than, you go to a game, guy plays, maybe gets banged up, they get their ass kicked. It's like, that was a shit trip.
Yeah, they don't want to hang out after.
I like to see, like, for example, my hack, like, this is me hacking being a dad that wants to be a dad. I love seeing dudes at the team hotel the night before a game.
Yeah, that's the time to get them.
I'll go, my kids are in bed. My wife understands. And I'll, tuck the kids in around 7:30, 7:45, hop in the car, head over to Jersey City where most of the guys end up staying for a Jets or Giants game. And they always have like an hour and a half before curfew. And I'll catch guys from like 9 to 10 on a Saturday before I'll go to a game.
You have made some great investments on, built VaynerMedia, as we talked about. What's a business or an industry or something that excites you right now that not a lot of people are talking about?
Crypto, NFTs, and Web3.
Yeah.
I think, gosh, I don't want to butcher it. Is it Warren Buffett? I'm going to butcher this. Disclaimer. What is it? Be fearful when others are greedy and be greedy when others are fearful, right?
I think it's perfect.
I think that's the quote, right? I love that. So right now, ETH's at like 1,600. A lot of NFTs are down 70 to 80%. Like I remember it very well. Those were good times. So I'm a big fan of that. I'm also a contrarian at heart. I love to zing when others zag. So for me, I actually love the post-hype cycle. Like, everybody wanted to be into NFTs and ETH and all that a year ago, and now nobody's talking about it. I think now's the time. This is a good spot. I bought some NFTs earlier this week. I'm putting my money in. Best part is, go check the blockchain. I put a few $1,000 into a couple of NFTs from an artist I like. I'm putting my money where my mouth is, and it's all publicly viewable.
Do people tail your NFT purchases a ton? Do you get a lot of people just following what you're doing?
Yeah. My brother on steroids.
Yeah.
Like, to a ridiculous degree. But especially during the bull run. Yeah.
Do a lot of athletes ask you about launching like their own NFT projects? Because you saw it a lot for.
I had a lot ask, and I would always tell them no. Yeah. I there was a few that came out really like. Mahomes did one, Gronk did one, and they won because they were super early and the hype cycle was crazy. But I would have these clients coming to me and I'd be like, listen, I don't think it's a good idea. I know on the surface it sounds great, but like, this shit's real work.
Yeah, you got to build a community.
Yeah, you got to build a community. You got to do it right. You got to continue. Like, this isn't like do it and then fall asleep and don't care. Like, that's going to do reputational damage. You could get into lawsuits. There's lawsuits popping up around like fraud and things of that nature around like celebrities. And so, and then I also had to be honest with some of these guys. I'm like, hey, like, you're not Patrick Mahomes. You're not a Super Bowl winning quarterback with millions of followers on Instagram. Like, I'm just being very real with you. Yeah. So I had a lot. I haven't had an athlete ask me about it in a long time. Yeah. But when the popping, I had a bunch of clients asking. Yeah. And I had to play back cop. It sucked, but it was a reality.
Yeah. Guys don't want to hear that they can't sell out a 10,000 piece NFT product. And they're probably
They don't
want to
hear it.
Like 0.05 ETH times 10,000.
Yeah, they don't want to hear it. But and I had a few guys try it.
Yeah.
And they got to see what I was talking about, and that's fine.
I've heard your brother talk about your dad a ton and the liquor store and growing up and all that. I haven't heard you talk about it a ton, so I'm curious to hear. And I know you don't do as much public speaking.
Yeah. No, and even then, I don't.
Your perspective on it.
Well, I had a very different experience.
You're much younger, right?
I'm 11 years younger than Gary.
Yeah.
And my parents immigrated from the former Soviet Union when my brother was 3. I was born here, and so part of the dynamic was that he grew up in a very traditional, cliche immigrant household where the firstborn needs to work right away. So that was his experience. And then because, my dad, started that business, Gary was the oldest, firstborn, like he grew into being my dad's partner with that business. And so when I was growing up and I'm like 12, 13, 14, 15, et cetera, I look at that and I'm like, there's not enough room for the two of them, let alone the 3 of us. Like that is not where my future is. So I never once, and no disrespect to my dad, and my dad knows this, I never once thought about like when I was done with college, I was going to work with him at the store. Because those two are 2 big alpha personalities.
Yeah.
It's like, imagine having 2 head coaches. Now imagine having 3. Like, no, it ain't gonna work. So, but work ethic is a very important core value in my family. It was very important to my mom and dad. And so I did work at the liquor store, but it was a different experience because I never had the belief or the thought that I would evolve into anything more than just using it as a thing to build my work ethic. So I would, the other interesting dynamic was I grew up in a town in New Jersey, and my family's Jewish, and we were like the only Jewish family in that area. So like Christmas Eve, when all my friends were busy doing Christmas Eve things, I was like, fuck it, I'll just go work at the store. It was crazy dumb busy.
Yeah.
Christmas Eve is a big day at Wine Library. And I was like, I'll just go work at the store. I'll help people bring their wine to their truck. They'll give me $1. Like, I'll go just make some money and just get some work in. So, when I worked at Wine Library, I was just like a stock boy. I was dusting bottles. Like, it was just stuff to give me a work ethic.
Yeah. If you had, I want to ask, for people watching, whether they're young athletes, whether it's aspiring agents, you talked about the perspective advice that your brother's given you. What's a piece of advice that you would give someone who you're a young guy, have had tons of success, built multiple businesses? What's a piece of advice you'd give someone, whether they're an athlete, whether they're, an aspiring business person that's young, early 20s, in college, somewhere around there, that just wants to make it? Like what have you learned? What's the piece of advice you give them?
Yeah, I think it all centers around patience, which is a big term my brother uses too. And, I'm going to have a hard time coming up with too many original thoughts because my brother brainwashed me. I'm 11 years younger, right? So a lot of what you're hearing from me comes from him, frankly. But patience and perspective, and put aside your ego. One thing I really like, and I talk a lot about with guys when they just think about business and opportunities, and it's something that I did, is like, would you rather have 100% of something small or 10% of something massive, right? Yeah. Like, and it's just perspective and things of that nature. And so a lot of times guys are just like, they're in a rush. Guys and gals are in a rush. They try to take shortcuts. I would really advise against shortcuts that can just create a bad reputation for you and things of that nature. So patience, perspective, align yourself with smart people. I was very, very lucky. The funniest question I get by far is, how do you find a co-founder? I'm like, you're asking me? Like, I was born into one. Like, I don't have an answer for that. I got lucky. Like, I had an older brother that was like, that's a bad question for me. That's not something I can help you with. But
you didn't choose a co-founder.
No, I got so lucky, man. That's my brother, my best friend, my mentor, my business partner. So, a good one with NIL that's been fun, specifically around our like college quarterbacks, in the patience regard, is, a lot of these deals, whether it's like the trading card companies or apparel companies, we got a lot of good young quarterbacks. Guys like Tyler Buckner at Notre Dame, Kyle McCord at Ohio State, who's backing up CJ the last 2 years, Nick Evers, who started off at Oklahoma, he's now at Wisconsin. And, these trading card companies are coming in and offering them a few bucks a signature. And the kids want it. They're like, dude, like I can make how much money just by signing my name a couple thousand times? I'm like, we got to chill on that, because what they're doing is they're speculating. They're making a bet. They want to give you $4, $5, $6, $7 an autograph on the idea that if you turn out to be a dude, they're saving a fortune, because when you're a dude, you can command 3-4 times that. And so just helping these guys and their families, because their families don't know.
Yeah.
Be like, hey, like let's sit on that, because soon it's going to be a lot better. And so just get, patience. And I'm like, you've been broke for 20 years. You can be broke for 6 more months.
Yeah, right. Those trading card deals too, man. They got to sit there and like sign 10.
And by the way, the first 10,000 signatures, they're about it. Man, sign my name. Every time I say my name, $5, $5, $10, $15, let's go. Yeah. But then they realize, oh, my hands getting kind of annoying. Oh, I got to do this by when? And
I love it. Yeah. What's something that surprised you recently?
What is something that surprised me recently?
It always makes people think. I love this question.
It's a great question. What has surprised me recently? I don't want to come off like an arrogant prick. I don't get surprised easily. What has surprised me? Damn. I'll say this. I've been surprised with how fast NIL has evolved. Mm-hmm. NIL 18 months ago, you can't even recognize it today. Yeah. So I knew it was going to evolve, but I feel like we're on our 3rd iteration of NIL and we're 18 months in. Yeah. So I'm impressed. But it makes sense. But yeah, that's a little bit surprising to me.
You think about NIL and college sports. I was talking today to someone at Radio Row, like, college football has changed more in the last 2 years than it changed in 100 years.
Exactly.
With every factor. I mean, it conference realignment.
Yeah.
I mean,
like just, Texas and what other school? Texas and who is leaving? Yeah, Oklahoma. They're leaving.
USC,
and
UCLA.
Yeah. No, the rapid pace at which college football in particular and college sports in general has evolved the last 18 months has surprised me.
Last thing I got for you, I like to kind of end with this question is, what's your why? What's the reason that, you work hard, you want to build businesses, you want to be successful? What's the thing that drives you?
So it's a great question. And what's cool for me that I don't know if too many people get to have this type of experience, my why has really changed. Mm-hmm. And I don't think people have that happen as much. Yeah. Maybe when you have kids, which is actually not how my why changed, which sounds terrible, but it's not how my why changed. A lot of times you see it when people have like near-death experiences or something, right? And so for me, like, I'll be honest, when I was in my like early 20s, I was a very selfish, very laser-focused on just like, I want to make all the money. Mm-hmm. That was me in my 20s. I call it from like 22 to 27. I was just like, I just want to make all the fucking money. Mm. And fortunately for me, we did really well, right? We built the agency from scratch to hundreds of employees and tens of millions in revenue. And then my health deteriorated. Mm-hmm. And I was diagnosed when I was 19. So it wasn't as if I was unaware of my disease in my 20s, but it really deteriorated on me because of the stress of the business. And I had my intestinal surgery and it was just like very, very tough. Yeah. And I struggled a lot mentally. I went through therapy, which was the best thing I could have done. And it really helped me get through a very dark time in my life where like everything looked great on the outside, but shit was bad. Yeah. Before my surgery, I went to the ER 4 times in 12 months due to just issues with my intestines. And so I think that after I had my stomach surgery and I came to the realization that I wanted to leave the ad agency, my why changed. So my why, in my 20s was get all the money so that I can buy a big house and do this and do that and fly private and all that stuff, which is so stupid and materialistic, but it was my why. And then when I decided to leave the ad agency and I left an enormous amount of money on the table, my why shifted. And now my why is I want to be fulfilled in my life, personally and professionally. Mm-hmm. I never want, money or business to cloud being a good husband, being a good father, being a good brother, being a good son. And I want to just enjoy life. Like, I don't want the things that I did to myself mentally to get the output financially I was looking for in my 20s. my body gave me a very clear answer that was not the right answer. And so I'm looking for a really balanced lifestyle. The sports agency has been perfect in the sense that like I work. It's very different, especially with kids. Like my schedule is very unique, but I love that about being a sports agent, about being an entrepreneur versus being in a 9-to-5. Like first of all, my typical week never looks like my Monday through Friday never looks the same. What I mostly do is Monday and Friday, I'll get up real early and I'll be at my desk at like 7:30 in the morning, and I'll work till about 5, get home, dinner, play, bath, kids, stuff from 5 to 7:30. And then if there's something that is a loose end, maybe I'll take a call at 7:30 and I'll be done by 8 usually. A couple emails, call, whatever. I'm done at 8. Hang with my wife, play video games with my friends online, whatever. That's usually Monday and Friday. Tuesday, I usually hang out in the morning with my kids. I usually take my son to preschool. And so I don't really start my workday until 9. I then work from 9 to 3. I then pick my daughter up from school and hang out with my kids from like 3 to 5. And then I work from 5 to 8. Okay. And sometimes like this past Tuesday, I work till like 9:30, whatever it takes, right? And then that's what I do on Tuesdays and Thursday, and then Wednesday. And then, there's certain things that change things up, whether it's, being at Super Bowl or going to Senior Bowl or a combine, or I'm going to the Knicks game on Monday. So like that adapts. But like what I love and what I strive for is what I think I have now, which is that ability to like still be a beast. But like I made gingerbread houses with my daughter at kindergarten, but I was I guess I strive to not be rigid and not to conform to like societal norms of a 9-to-5 is what you're supposed to do.
Yeah. Still hard work, but you get to dictate it.
I work hard as hell, but I dictate it. I'm doing something that I'm passionate about, that I'm interested in, and it affords me the opportunity to spend time with my kids and have cool experiences.
Yeah.
That's what it's about for me.
I love it, man. Well, I appreciate you taking the time,
Yeah, man.
especially
Thank you
during
for
a
having
busy
me,
Super Bowl week.
Yeah,
It's
man.
been fun getting to know you.
This has been great, brother.
Yeah, glad to call you a friend, man.
Yeah,
Excited
man.
to see what you build, VaynerSports.
I appreciate that, brother.
Yeah, appreciate it, man.